Sports Talk Chicago. Here with Jon Zaghloul, and we are back and ready for today's special guest. He's a six-time All-Star, three-time World Series champion, and a member of the 3,000 Strikeout Club. Please welcome Curt Schilling to the program. Curt, it's great to have you on. How are you?
Appreciate it, John. Thank you.
So, Curt, how's Tennessee been since you've moved?
Heaven. It's been amazing.
Why has it been so nice? What's made it different from
the people down here they were raised the way I was raised. They're respectful, they're kind, they're generous, they're thoughtful, they're caring, everything you want. I mean, we had some amazing friends up in Massachusetts, but it's just a very different place.
Do you miss Boston at all now?
No.
Why do you say that?
No, I just don't. We love living here. I mean, I'm very much forward looking. I had a phenomenal experience in Boston. It was everything I hoped it would be, and we're on to a different part of our lives.
You raise chickens, right? You have a farm down there in Tennessee?
I have a rescue, actually. I have llamas and alpacas and goats and chickens and peacocks and you name it. I got it, and it's kind of doubling as an animal rescue as well.
That's really great. Why'd you decide to do that? I
love animals. They're simple. The fact is I've got a barn full of unconditional love down there, and it's just incredibly relaxing. I have 4 puppies now, livestock dogs that I'm raising down there. I'm living the dream right now. I really am.
So what's a day in the life of Curt Schilling like now? Because I know we tried to schedule an interview, and you're at the farm. So what's a day like now for you?
Well, even though my calendar has literally nothing on it because I'm retired, I just keep myself busy doing stuff I enjoy doing. We empty nested about 3 months ago. Our youngest is in Maine playing hockey, trying to get his way to the NHL, and our other kids are in school or working and doing those things. So we're just enjoying life. So a day is. From a scheduling standpoint, Monday and Saturday are kind of the same days for me, which is awesome. But nothing major. I mean, we're going back to see the kids and this weekend and see a hockey game and that kind of stuff. But we're just kind of living it day to day.
Curt Schilling here on Sports Talk Chicago. Curt, what's prompted your outspokenness after your playing career?
Well, I don't think it's any different than it was when I played. They just ask me different questions now, and they don't like the answers. So I've always been very open about who I am and what I am, and very comfortable with who I am and what I am. And if people don't like the answers, just don't ask the questions.
How do you feel about the direction of the country right now?
Horrible. I actually let me check that. We're on the day after the Virginia election, so I'm uplifted somewhat. You have two very strong Black women who are conservatives who have won posts, and the left has continued to push the racist card, which I find amusing. But this last year has been, in my mind, just an unmitigated disaster, and it's everything I think we expected from this administration.
What do you think could change the tides a bit and maybe reverse course from what happened in 2020?
A free and fair election, probably another Donald Trump run, as much as people hate to hear that. Well, not everybody, but some. And I don't know. I feel like we've gotten pushed and shoved enough, and I don't know about you, but the things that I hear, and Let's Go Brandon is just the latest one. And we chuckle about it, and I do too. But I'm offended that people think we're that stupid. I'm offended that people think we're that naive and that ignorant. I know what I heard. You know what you heard. We all heard what we thought we heard, and the media continues to play us for the village idiot, and their time has run out. You're probably going to draw more viewers to this than any CNN program this month, which should speak volumes about where. But it's true. I mean, this is where you have to go now to get real information. Where you have, there's an agenda and it's being played out in front of us. And most of us have called it months ago and are no longer a part of it.
I'm just curious, have you ever thought about running for office before? Have you been prompted to, especially after the Biden election?
I actually was going to a couple different times, thinking I almost was going to run against Elizabeth Warren in Mass. I thought about running in Arizona for a congressional seat this last year. But at the end of the day, when I watched what they did to the Trump family, and I watched what the media did when it kind of made kids fair game, my family, I don't want to say suffered. My family paid the price of a 20-year professional career and all that entailed. And I just didn't feel like they needed to be put through anymore. That's and I also think, given my desire to clean house, I don't know that I'd last very long in office, because I would have probably less of a filter than Trump, and that might not be good in this day and age.
Are you ruling it out, or could you see yourself at some point in the future still running?
Yeah. I mean, it all depends. It would have to be the right place, the right circumstance. It's something I'm passionate about. The other thing I'm passionate about is working with young kids. I love working with young baseball players, especially pitchers. But I've been pretty much blackballed out of baseball, I think, in most every capacity. So I don't know that that'll ever be a door that'll open, but we'll see.
Why do you think you've been blackballed? Is it your belief?
Well, I know I have been. I mean, I've never, I have reached out at a couple different opportunities to, honestly, I just wanted to go through the interview process and see what it was like. And I've with a couple exceptions, I've never even gotten a response. So, and I know I can teach. But that's, I understand it. That's what the game is these days. And unfortunately, Rob Manfred hasn't turned out to be the guy I thought he was. I was a player rep for about 10 years, and I dealt with Rob during the 94 lockout. I've always loved the guy. But to see him turn this far left has been disappointing.
What kind of opportunities are you talking about? Like coaching jobs or?
Yeah, pitching coach. I've actually done quite a bit of work in the draft for a couple teams, looking at kids for the draft for a couple teams. That's what I think I'm good at. I can look at a young pitcher and tell and know. But I've been pitching in my mind. I've been doing it for 50 some years, so I know that probably as well as anybody alive. And I love teaching, but coaching, getting involved in I feel like there's a lot of room for teams to organize and set up a program for pitching from rookie ball to the big leagues. And I think there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And I don't think a lot of teams are doing it the right way.
What is the right way?
Well, I think one of the right ways is to emphasize, especially to your starting pitchers at a young age, that the most important statistic is innings. And because, I was always taught that innings were the most important statistic, because if you're in there for the innings, then all the other numbers are going to take care of themselves. People lament, and I'm one of them. I couldn't watch the postseason. I'm not real interested in watching a guy who's busting his ass to get to the fifth inning as a starting pitcher. And in many cases, it's not the player's fault. There's so much money involved in signing these young players that they do everything they can do to protect them, to make sure that they eventually get to the big leagues. The problem is these kids come to the big leagues, and a lot of things that have never happened to them before happen to them for the first time at that level. And that's just too much stress and strain physically and mentally to ask, I think, for young pitchers. You don't want to experience, much like raising kids, you don't want your kids to experience mayhem for the first time after they leave the house. You want to teach them about those things before they do. And I think it's very much the same thing with pitching.
How's the game differ from when you play? Is it a completely different game to you?
It really is. I mean, you saw this postseason was a perfect example. Nobody was worried about facing any pitcher. nobody was worried about fate. And I'll use my example. There was no RJ and Schilling that you had to win this game to make sure, nothing like that. And, you see guys coming out or not posting in the postseason for various physical things that just are mind-boggling to me. You may never get there again. And it's a once in a lifetime opportunity every time you're afforded it. And sabermetrics, I don't believe translates very well into October. And I was a sabermetrics guy 30 years ago in the standpoint of statistics and what were priorities to me and what mattered. But I don't know. I don't think that they translate as well to October as the Yale grads would like to think they do.
Curt Schilling here on Sports Talk Chicago. Curt, what do you make of your Hall of Fame case?
I don't. I really don't. I haven't for years. I asked to be taken off the ballot this year because it's turned into a nightmare for us. No one in my family, including myself, ever looks forward to it coming around again, because the media continues to paint a picture of a Curt Schilling that doesn't actually exist. And the things that are said and written don't have any basis in reality. I played 22 years. I played with thousands of people. I interacted with hundreds of thousands of people. I've never had a teammate, a friend, a clubhouse guy, a coach, anybody in any organization ever accused me of saying something racist, something sexist, something homophobic, ever. But the media has painted a picture of a Curt Schilling that doesn't exist. And so every year that comes back around. And it's turned into this nightmarish process that I want no part of. And quite honestly, the members of the sports media that do the judging, there are very few Jason Starks and Tim Kirkins in the world. Those guys are pure souls, good people. They love the game. They're fans, right? Good or bad about me, I don't care. Just don't lie. And this group of people doing the judging are some of the worst human beings in existence. I mean, if you think about it, Bill Conlon, who is in the writers' wing of the Hall of Fame, was a pedophile. And I've never heard the writers lament about his inclusion. I've never hit my wife, driven drunk, done drugs, hit my kids. I've never done any of the things like that. Doesn't mean I haven't sinned. I certainly have. But none of the things that people are up in arms about professional athletes doing have I done. I was outspoken. They loved it when I played because I can fill a notebook. And I have never been a yes, no guy. You can ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer. If I don't care about something, I'll just say yes or no, but I'm passionate about the things I believe in. When you ask me a question, you get an answer.
Why do you think they targeted you in this way since you retired and since you've been on the ballot too?
Well, because I'm a conservative. They've made it clear. I mean, the things that they've said about me, again, have no basis. In fact, if you go back to the first big blow up, which was I posted a tweet comparing Islamic extremists to Nazis. Now, I don't know which group I offended. I don't care. I mean, one of them's a group of terrorists. The other one's Nazis. I mean, but somehow not somehow, I shouldn't say somehow. The media selectively omits words from quotes, and that somehow they're soothsayers because they know what you meant to say. You didn't actually say it, but they know what he actually meant was, and they're probably the worst human beings in the world at those things. And, this is the last true sports forum, the radio, because this is unfiltered, it's uncut. And it's one of the reasons I don't preferably do television much anymore, because everybody gets to know you in sound bites and clips that the person showing them gets to pick. And when it comes to me, they don't enjoy it.
Yeah, this is on TV and the radio, so I appreciate you pointing that out. That's correct. Yeah. How do you feel about this whole situation? Because you do have the accolades, you have the numbers, you have 3,000 strikeouts, 3 World Series, so you have the numbers to be there. Should your personal beliefs get in the way of this achievement? This is a lifelong achievement.
Well, again, it doesn't matter what I think because I don't vote. I have always been a believer that the Hall of Fame should be one and done from the standpoint of, I play this game with everybody. I'm going to name a couple baseball players and you tell me yes or no. Are they Hall of Famers? Mickey Mantle.
Hall of Famer.
Cy Young.
Hall of Famer. Definitely.
Greg Maddux,
Hall of Famer.
Mike Mussina. That's
That's a
it.
no.
If you have to pause, that's the Hall of Fame. In my mind, the Hall of Fame
Right.
is, right? So if you have to pause, then no. So I was never a Hall of Famer in my own book because you could make a case. And so, you know, and I'm okay with that. If I don't get elected, I'm going to have my 3 rings. I'm going to keep my 3 trophies. I'm going to have the respect of the guys that I played with and the guys that I played against. You know, I can't live, and that's why when you ask me about it, I'm indifferent about it in that sense. I mean, to me, the Hall of Fame is about recognition of all the people that you had to stand on to get there. I mean, you know, it's God-given ability first and foremost. But the fact of the matter is, without hundreds of thousands of people in my life and enormously influential people, including, like, you know, starting my father, I never would have even, this conversation never would have happened. So, you know, for me, that is what the Hall of Fame is recognizing the people that deserve and committed and put the time in. You know, I'm a hockey parent now, so I understand, you know, 4 a.m. skates and all those things that parents sacrifice. And my parents did the same. I grew up very poor middle class. My dad was Army, but I played baseball, and they made sure I did.
Who were some of those people? You mentioned your dad. Is there anyone else in your mind who really?
Oh yeah, I had a ton. I had my dad passed away when I was 21, which is about 8 months before I made the big leagues, and I was in search for the next couple of years. I was really desperate for a father figure. Frank Robinson, Johnny Padres, John Vukovic, Brian Butterfield, Buck Showalter, Terry Francona, John Farrell. I apologize. I know I'm leaving names out. So those guys were enormously influential. Frank was a huge influence on me, and a friend my whole life. Jim Fregosi is another one. I mean, just guys that Jerry Colangelo. You know, I was always on the lookout for stern. Dallas Green. John Vukovic was my third base coach in Philadelphia. My first really big influence in the big leagues. And John came from the school of he who is loudest is always right. And that was how Dallas Green coached. I loved playing for guys like that because I knew I was going to do all the things I needed to do. And I knew they were going to make sure that everybody else did as well. And so I always loved playing for guys that were disciplinarians and strict and things like. I goofed off, I said stuff and yada yada, but I posted every 5th day and took the ball, and I left everything I had on the field. And I played the game hard, I played the game right, I played the game with respect. I mean, I was never drilled in my career, and I know I hit 52 guys, I think, and probably less than 10 of them were accidental. But it's because I played the game right, and I learned that from those men and from my father. And you know, Roger Clemens told me very early in my career, when you walk to the mound, that name on the back of your shirt is not yours, it's your father's. And that was always very profound for me. And it's actually a conversation I had with my youngest son who's playing hockey and recently about playing the game hard and playing the game right. If you're good and you do those things, good things happen.
Let me ask you this, because you mentioned this before publicly. If the Veterans Committee somehow puts you in, would you accept that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I'm hoping will happen. I'm very much hoping that if I get elected, that it's that process that does it.
Will you do a speech and do the whole spiel, go to Cooperstown and everything?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, listen, I talk about, don't think for a second I'm indifferent about the Hall of Fame itself. I mean, because I was born and raised on baseball. You know, when I was playing for Frank Robinson, I knew who Frank Robinson was, right? I mean, I was sitting across from arguably, in my opinion, one of the most underrated players in the history of the game. Yes, he's a Hall of Famer, but I don't think people appreciate he might have been one of the 5 best players that ever lived. So that in itself, that's profound. Those plaques are meaningful, but they're not all meaning. Again, if it never happens, it doesn't change anything I did. It doesn't change anything I won or lost. It doesn't change my teammates, I don't think, their opinion of me. So, you know, I'm good, man.
What's your greatest or most fondest achievement from your career?
Roberto Clemente Award.
Tell me more about it.
Well, There's a backstory. In 1972, I attended the first and only game I've ever attended in my life as a paid admission, which was the final game of the 1972 season. And Roberto Clemente got his 3,000th hit off John Matlack.
Wow.
I grew up a Pirates fan. So my dad's favorite player was Roberto Clemente, and he died 2 weeks later in the plane crash. And that was the first time I ever saw my dad cry. But my dad idolized Roberto, so I did. And then when I got to the big leagues in 1992, I was talking to my wife, and we were talking about, I just had my first successful season in the big leagues. And I said, we're talking about, achievements and accomplishments. And I said, when I retire, I want two things. I want the guys that I played with to look back and say, life or death, one game, I want him to have the ball, and I want to win the Roberto Clemente Award. Because to me, that defines everything you are outside of the uniform. And getting that was the highest honor of my life. I got to meet the Clemente family and, that whole thing. And being on that list is something I'll always be very proud of.
When you received the award, when you found out that you got it, what was your reaction?
I was blown away. I had won. So the process is like this. Every team has a Roberto Clemente Award winner each year. And then those winners go into the group, and one is picked for Major League Baseball. And I had won it a couple years for the teams I played for, which was incredibly, honoring, and I was incredibly proud of it. But to win the whole thing was, and listen, I'm not naive. I had a stinking monster season too, and I know that usually helps. You don't generally see a guy hitting 203 with 2 home runs and 7 RBIs winning it. But in 2001 and 2, RJ and I had the time of our lives, and it just happened to coincide with that.
Tell me about that 2001 season. That was probably one of the most historical 1-2 punches in baseball history.
Well, I argue that for 2 years, nobody in the history of the game was ever as dominant as we were. I mean, you think about it, we won 90 games.
Unbelievable.
I think we struck out 13 or 1,400 hitters.
Wow.
We were the first 2 teammates to ever do 300 in a season together. I screwed up by being 7 short in 01, or we would have done it twice. But I can't begin to describe it. Let's put it this way. If I could go back to any period of my career, I'd do those 2 years again, because my God, we knew. I mean, it was, and you'd have to ask Randy, but every time he pitched, I tried to be better than he was. And that was a bar that, I'm watching every 5th day. I'm watching a guy who's going to do something maybe tonight no one's ever seen before every time he took the ball. And I took that as a full-on challenge. I loved it. And I think we made 100 and probably about 135, 140 starts, and we were only beaten back-to-back once. Wow. And we, like I said, we knew. And teams knew. And, I always used to, when I was young, you'd look at the schedule and see who's pitching Friday and Saturday, and, oh, man, it's Maddox or Clemens. And I think for a period of time, he and I became those guys like, oh, crap, we got Johnson and Schilling this weekend. And, you weren't going to make your living off of us, that's for sure.
How special was that World Series?
So people in Boston get very offended when they ask me which one was better. But see, 01 had a very personal connection to me. I was raised in Arizona. So that, in Phoenix. And so, and I was part of the first team to ever win a world championship in any sport in Arizona. 9/11 happened. Game 7, you can't draw it up. Game 7, I'm facing the most influential player in my career, and Roger Clemens. We're both 20-game winners. It's been one of the most remarkable 6 games of World Series play ever. And then you had 9/11 as the backdrop for all of that. And so it was amazing. It was breathtaking. And, I was such an integral part of it. And so that made it obviously a bigger deal for me. And I was doing it in front of guys I went to high school with, my junior college teammates and stuff like that. So, what it meant for the country. Baseball, I think, really breathed life back into this country for 9/11 and did what it was supposed to do. But 2004 was every bit as special for so many different reasons. But 01, man, when you go back and look at that, we should have won that series 4-0. We literally absolutely dominated these guys, and they were still 3 outs away from winning their 4th in a row. That's the amazing thing to me. That was a dynasty of dynasties, and we just, and it's funny because you think in sports things are supposed to happen a certain way. Like in 1993, we were this lovable bunch of gypsies, tramps, and thieves in Philadelphia, and the city just worshipped us. We should have beat the Blue Jays if everything was supposed to go right. Joe Carter said otherwise. But in 01, you would think, well, the Yankees in New York, 9/11, they should win this. And I'm on the other side going, no, they shouldn't. No, I'm happy they're here, but screw that. I mean, but you have to, I think we willed it. I mean, it was just an incredible, and, you have a guy rightfully elected the Hall of Fame with the 100% in Mariano Rivera. And probably 2 of the blemishes in his entire career, 2 of the top 3, I got to be there for. The 04 playoffs when we came back and beat him, and 01, game 7, 9th inning. I mean, and so I got to see the 2 mistakes he made in his entire life firsthand and benefit from them. So, and it was the Yankees, so that made it just that much better.
Curt Schilling, still here on Sports Talk Chicago. Curt, how much did it mean to you to end your career with the World Series 2 in 2007?
Well, a couple things. First off, I didn't think my career was ending then. I had planned to probably play another year, so I certainly didn't expect, as I'm walking off the mound, embarrassingly in the 6th inning of a game. I never thought that'd be my last game, but to know that my last start was a World Series win, that doesn't suck. Although it does suck that I walked Todd Helton to end my career. So, but no, I had planned on coming back, and I got hurt that winter, and it turned into kind of an ugly thing. But I'll forever be grateful to the people of Boston. They were so good to me and so good to my family.
How did it feel? I mean, to break that drought in 04, to win again in 07, to end your career like on that note. I mean, that must have been, that's not something everybody gets to do. What you got to do.
There's an interview I did with a gentleman out of Boston named Dan Roach when I signed in the winter of 03. And it's eerily prophetic because he said, what do you want to do? What do you want to look back on when this is over? And I said, well, I'd like to look back after the 2007 season and, our 2nd or 3rd World Series since I've been there and say that, we did it. And I saw somebody played that afterwards. But I mean, I spent my career, no one ever pressured me more than I pressured myself. And pressure might not be the right word, but I did the Ford commercial, and in the Ford commercial, the guy, I'm hitchhiking, and the guy says, "Where are you headed?" I said, "I'm headed to Boston to break an 86-year-old curse." Now, I'm a Christian. I understand those things curses don't exist. It's a curse of talent when you don't win. And you had guys like Kevin Millar talking about how in 2003, he didn't want a ground ball hit to him late in that game because he didn't want to be Bill Buckner again, which is the exact opposite way of how I approach everything in life. And so, that's why I came up with a shirt that saying, "Why not us?" And it was a very simple question with a very simple answer. There's no reason it can't be us. And, we fall behind 3-0, and, I'm hobbling around on one foot, and I'm thinking, and I was devastated because that's what they brought me there to do. I made a point during the negotiations at my home in the winter. I pointed to Theo and to Valerio Aquino and Jed Hoyer. I pointed to the World Series trophy that was just conveniently sitting between them. And I said, let's not fool around, guys. I know you're bringing me there to win one of those, and you don't think you can do it without me. And that's what I want to come there for. And so I'm not going to hide. That was fun to me. That's a challenge, and in a good way. I'm very different than my father was a man of very few words, and obviously I'm the exact opposite. And I had no problem with that because that's what I got paid to do. I was getting paid to beat them. And so saying it out loud doesn't change the fact that it's still the case. And, I probably could have done better before game 1 of the playoffs. And I said, I can't think of anything better than making 55,000 people from New York shut up. And then I went out and got my ass handed to me. And they didn't shut up. They were loud, rightfully so. But I got to come back 5 days later and do it again. And it worked out.
Tell me about the bloody sock and how you made it through all that pain.
Faith. I am a Christian, and I am became born again in 1997. No, it wasn't some prophetic event in my life. I just had kids, and I was trying to figure out what this was all about. You know, the meaning of life and why are we here? And I knew there was something bigger out there, and I became a Christian, and it was something that I relied on and lived on. And a lot of people are, I used to say a pregame prayer on the mound at the time before I pitched, and people were like, "Oh yeah, God wants you to win more than the Yankees," and I was like, "No, I don't ever pray for wins. I prayed for the strength to compete." And I had a torn tendon that was surgically repaired before the game, and they stitched the skin to the bone, and it worked. And I just prayed to God for the strength to be out there and compete. And once I knew I could do that, I was totally fine with the chips falling where they fell. And fortunately, it fell on our side of the table.
Wanted to ask you something. So I don't know if you saw this in the World Series. Charlie Morton broke his leg, and there were there were comparisons to your moment. And he said this, and I want you to respond to it. He said, quote, "The difference is I broke my leg, and Curt scuffed himself up at Yankee Stadium to make it about himself. Curt is still counting the Red Sox. Good." But what's your response to that?
I didn't hear that. I don't know. I don't really care. I mean, I got my ring, he got his, and I mean, he came out and I didn't. I don't know. I don't know.
I just was very curious because I saw that a week ago.
I didn't hear that. Yeah, I had not heard that.
That was a charged statement to me.
Well, I mean, that's, again, when people are led to believe you're something you're not, other people make opinions and comments that, they don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. So it is what it is.
Two more questions before we finish up. First off, your favorite teammate in baseball was who?
No way. I had too many. I had some of the greatest teammates. I could start a David West, funny, Doug Mirabelli, Bill Miller, Kevin Jordan. I had so many great teammates. Ron Gant, Scott Rowland, Jeff Bagwell. I could literally just start rolling names left and right. Todd Stottlemyre, Brian Anderson, just phenomenal human beings. And I was always very, very blessed with, for the most part, I had great teammates every year.
And then last question, what's the funniest moment you've been a part of in your career?
It happened off the field, and I can't tell the story. It has to do with a club where women take their clothes off, and I was young, and it's one that I'll take with me to my game. Oh, I will give you one story that I just came out on Twitter today. Today apparently was the anniversary of Game 6 where we beat Andy Pettitte in 2001, and I revealed the secret that Andy tipped all his pitches that night.
Really?
Yes, he was tipping his pitches when he had runners on base, and we had every pitch that he was throwing when he had runners on base. And It was the only time I ever saw him do it. But I caught it like in the first inning, and well, we crushed him.
I didn't know that. That's unbelievable.
Yep.
Curt, thank you so much for joining me.
Really my pleasure, man. Thank you.
An honor. Thank you.
All right, you take care of yourself.